record that is progressive, but it's modern sounding, in the great tradition of Riot. And then, Nuclear Blast, they should be able to take us to the next level. Let's hope.
There's a lot of pressure on both records for different reasons. I mean, for Unleash the Fire, it was the first record of this lineup, and it's Riot 5, and there's a lot of skeptics to whether or not it would be, legitimate, and that was. But so we had little expectations to the response, and then the response was so overwhelmingly good that this record the pressure is now to make something better, and or at least as good, but we think it's better. I think it's a very logical continuation. I think that all the things that we learned that we could do together with Unleash the Fire, we've expanded upon, and there's more of everyone's personalities into it, but it still has that classic, Riot sound that Donnie and Mike keep in the band,
This was a very important record for us because, Mark Reale, the original member, his passing, so we had to, make a record in the great tradition, of Riot music. They had many member changes and different styles through the years. So we tried to combine, all the eras, like the Thunder Still and the rock era of Riot, but we knew we were up against, something, with the name, possibly, adding the 5 for the chapter 5, Riot 5, for Todd being the 5th singer. But it was challenging because Tony Moore wasn't there anymore. It was basically me and Mike, collectively we were in the band for 30 years. We said we have to make a record that could make or break us, basically. You're coming from the reunion record, Immortal Soul, with Tony and Bobby and Mark. So it was a challenge, and we knew that to continue, we had to come up with something special, and basically see what would happen. And, if people didn't accept it, we might not be here right now. But fortunately for us, we learned a lot with Mark Reale. Not only was I a member of his band, but I was a fan before I joined in 1984. So I learned a lot about songwriting with him. So we kind of take that when we create songs of how he would want things. And so that's why we started writing in that tradition. Plus we knew it was going to be my era of Thunder Still. So we wanted to keep it kind of power metal, but, have some of the rock influence. So we made it, and we, we had support from the label still. They said, okay, well, we need to keep going on. So basically make a record and see what happens. And we had promoters book the band. And then all of a sudden, everybody was fine with it. They were just like, great music, and the continuation is successful. So that's why we're here right now. Riot through the years, many different styles, but consistently they've had great songs. So that's what we tried to do that. And so that's why it was important to us. Writing music, and we were basically deciding that we wanted to take the next step up, and we felt like Nuclear Blast might be able to be that, that label that'll help the band out finally, because they are one of the biggest heavy metal labels in the world. So, and I think we had shopped with them before, but this time it got a little more serious. We figured we had to make a record also. This record that's the follow-up to Unleash the Fire is almost as important, because then you have people going, well, was Unleashed just a fluke? It happened to be a great record. We have to write great music, to deliver to them, because they're just, they carry, just the messenger, they carry it to the next level. If we can't deliver musically, well then people aren't dumb. Riot fans are very smart people. Mark used to tell me the longevity of Riot is through good music, no matter all the member changes and styles, hard rock, Brett, and heavy metal with Tony, and so forth. I think at the time we knew it was great material, but we didn't know how special it would be because, you're dealing with, a classic like Fire Down Under, who was basically Riot's staple album. And Thundersteel came to be the second one, the largest one. When we recorded it, I was friends with Mark way before I joined the band in 1984. So he knew I was in a metal band from Texas. It was like a Slayer, but it was the Texas Slayer. And I was into heavy metal, new wave of British heavy metal, stuff like that. So when Mark would come, we would write music, and I would write a little bit more aggressive stuff that was really kind of out of the realm of Riot. They were coming from Born in America. So when we started to write the music, Mark was getting a little more progressive in his approach too. He's a rock and roll player, but he started getting into, some really, he wanted to be aggressive licks. He was getting into Judas Priest style and stuff. So he looked to me to write a lot of the stuff. That's why I wrote, almost every song on Thundersteel. He trusted me, I would write the music, he would write the melodies, and that's kind of how we do it now. We write aggressive music, but you still want a great singer and a melody, that's pleasing to the ears or whatever. So anyway, when we recorded it, it was some material that me and Mark had written in a band called Narita that was kind of a side band for Mark outside of Riot, which eventually went on to be, the Thundersteel. So we just sat down and we wrote like something that was aggressive. It was different, so we knew some of the Riot fans were going to be like, what is this? It's not like the norm. But same thing happened when they changed singers. When they went from Guy to Rhett Forrester, a lot of people were like, who is this guy? They had a certain sound. So we had that challenge. But when it came out, we were lucky enough to get another big label in back of us, CBS Records. And they took it and they shot it up, and videos, and Blood Street was on there, and all of a sudden it just went, phew, it took off for us. And some people consider it to be the best Riot record now. And I meet people that don't even know anything before then. So it's kind of interesting. So.
I was a fan before I joined, but more than that, Mike Flintz was my guitar teacher from when I was 8 years old to I was 18. So I said this before, it wasn't really so much like I found Riot as a band. We were always like, oh yeah, of course, Riot, it was Mike's band, So they were always part of my life. I saw Riot with Mark Reale when I was 15. They came to Long Island where I lived, and they played a show, and I went and saw them, and I got to shake Mark's hand. And I've never really felt like I was filling Mark Reale's shoes, because that would be an impossible thing to do. Mike asked me to do this, and as someone I've known my whole life, I of course wanted to and said yes. And he took Mark's parts while I took his parts. So really, it's like I'm filling Mike's shoes. Yeah. Mike has to fill Mark's shoes.
Yeah. Mike took over for Mark's part and went over to that side of the stage, and Nick came over to mine and was covering Mike's part. So.
Yeah.
All right. I was listening to stuff like UFO, Michael Schenker, Ronnie Montrose, Rush. Those are the bands that I considered, kind of like heavier. But as far as the metal scene goes, there wasn't really a lot happening back then. The heavy bands were, I think, like the ones I mentioned, like Montrose was very, very heavy. Very hard rock band. and of course, so was Riot. You know, the metal scene wasn't really happening yet, but I think that was just the beginning of it. It started happening. You know, the type of music that was played at the time maybe wasn't as. When you say commercial success, what are we talking about? Are we talking about writing a hit song like, let's say, you know, Feels Like the First Time by Foreigner, or Can't Get Enough of Your Love by Bad Company? Are you talking about something like that? They weren't really writing tunes like that. I think Warrior probably was the most closest thing I think that you could I think say was a commercial hit. It got heavy airplay in New York and in Texas, and I think that probably was the closest thing. But I think really the songs and the record company and the management, I think, had a lot to do with it also. Or maybe Mark or the band wanted to go in a certain direction. But I think writing the songs and becoming a commercial success, you have to have a song that really hits home. And I'm sure like Iron Maiden has a couple of them. Metallica has a couple of them that are really outstanding, and they can really... Riot has them too, but for some reason it doesn't have the push that, well, maybe this next album will have it. You know, the continued carrying the torch and continuing on, I think might happen. It might happen. They got great tunes. They're great players, great songwriters.
One word to describe Donnie. I used the word I used before. He's a lifer, meaning he's in this for the long haul. He's the real deal. You know, it's just a musician. You know, rocker. He's a lifer.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, man.
That's hard to say too. He's a lot of things, but inspiration. He's the younger generation. He inspires me because, you know, I was in his shoes once, you know, and when you're the young guy in the band, you know, you're coming into a legendary band. That's how I felt when I joined with Rhett and Mark and stuff like that. So, you know, I was inspired to be something, you know, and follow these guys, you know, such a legendary. And Nick, you know, I see him on stage and I see myself in him sometimes. Like, he's really giving it his all, but he's playing with a bunch of, you know, veteran players and stuff like that. And he holds his own. You know, he's gonna, you know, he's that guy we needed.
Guys, thank you. Thank you for your time.
I love you, man.
I love you, man.